The Vanishing of Warren Harris, a saga of betrayal, healing, and self-reckoning. My name is Warren Harris, and I am 52 years old. Until recently, I was a financial advisor at Henderson and Blake in Chicago. For 27 years, I meticulously built a career, helping affluent clients grow their assets, navigate the labyrinthine tax codes, and plan for a comfortable old age. The bitter irony? I was a man who could foresee potential catastrophes long before they struck, yet I utterly failed to recognize the one unfolding within my own home: secrets and deceit. On that fateful day, 29 years to the day after our wedding, I found her hidden phone. 18 months of clandestine messages to her tennis instructor. I didn't rage, I didn't scream, I didn't confront. I simply vanished. No farewells, no explanatory note. I simply evaporated. For months, I meticulously sculpted a new existence in a place she would never find me. Then a single envelope arrived. Her handwriting. She had found me. Now I faced a choice. The beginning of the end. Jennifer and I married young, both 23, brimming with naive hopes. Our daughter Emma arrived 2 years later. We built what I believed was the perfect life: a Tudor-style home in Oak Park, summer vacations in Maine, Emma's graduation from Northwestern University. I worked late, but it was all for us, for our future. Or so I told myself. The cracks began to show around our 25th anniversary. I had just taken on the Bishop family, whose fortune exceeded $50 million and required a complete portfolio restructuring. For 3 months, I practically lived at the office. When I missed Emma's 27th birthday dinner for an urgent client matter, Jennifer didn't even look angry. She just stared at me with that vacant expression and said, "I didn't expect anything less." I tried to compensate. A surprise weekend in New York for Jennifer, an extravagant watch for Emma. But gifts are not presents, and deep down I knew it. Still, I continued to rationalize, promising myself more family time after the Bishop project concluded, then after my promotion at Henderson, then after tax season. Meanwhile, Jennifer joined a book club, took up tennis, started volunteering at the Way Art Museum. Good, healthy pursuits. I was glad she had interests outside our marriage. It never occurred to me to question why she suddenly needed so many activities outside the home. The stab last April, I came home early. I'd closed a major deal and wanted to surprise Jennifer with dinner at Alinea, that 3-Michelin-star restaurant she'd mentioned for years. The house was empty, but her car was in the garage. I called her name, checked the backyard, then our bedroom. Her closet door stood ajar. Inside, on a shelf where she kept her winter scarves, I spotted a phone I'd never seen before. It wasn't locked. The messages stretched back 18 months. His name was Richard, her tennis instructor. The last message had been sent that very morning. "Can't wait to feel your hands on me again. Last night was incredible." I stood staring at that small screen, feeling as though I'd been shot. 29 years of marriage, 29 years of what I believed was building something unbreakable. And in that moment, everything I thought I knew about my life shattered like glass. I didn't confront Jennifer immediately. Something inside me just shut down. I carefully returned the phone to its spot, went downstairs, and sat in my car in the garage for nearly an hour. When she finally arrived home, carrying grocery bags and humming to herself, I helped unpack them as if nothing had happened. "You're early," Jennifer said, surprise in her voice. "Closed the Wilkerson deal ahead of schedule," I replied, my voice steady, as I arranged canned goods in the pantry. "Great," she said with a smile that didn't reach her eyes. "I'm making salmon for dinner." We ate across from each other at our kitchen island, just as we had thousands of times before. She talked about her day at the museum, mentioned a new exhibit opening in June. I nodded, asked appropriate questions, all the while wondering if she had been with him before coming home. The flight after dinner, I told her I needed to drive to clear my head about a work problem. She barely looked up from loading the dishwasher. "Don't stay out too late," Jennifer said casually, as if she cared about my schedule. I drove aimlessly through our neighborhood, past the elementary school where Emma once played soccer, past the park where I taught her to ride a bicycle. 29 years of memories at every turn. I found myself at Lake Michigan, watching the waves crash against the shore in the darkness. My phone vibrated, a message from Jennifer asking when I'd be home. The irony was not lost on me. It was then that it hit me, clear as the stars over the lake. I needed to disappear. Not dramatically, not vengefully, simply to leave. I couldn't bear her excuses or watch her shed crocodile tears. I couldn't stomach the thought of marriage counseling where we would pretend this could be fixed. I would vanish. After her betrayal, I never planned to return until she found me months later. But that night, sitting in my car with the lake stretching before me, I had no idea she would ever find me. I wasn't even sure I wanted to be found. I drove to an ATM and withdrew $3,000, the maximum daily limit. Then I checked into a roadside motel outside the city, paying in cash. The room smelled of cheap disinfectant and stale cigarettes, but it was clean enough. I sat on the edge of the bed and called Emma. "Dad?" she answered, surprised. "Is everything okay? It's pretty late." "Everything's fine, honey," I lied, keeping my voice level. "Listen, I might be unreachable for a couple of days. Work project. Don't worry if you can't get hold of me." "That's a weird time," Emma said. "Mom just texted asking if I'd heard from you." "I'll call her," I assured her. "Just wanted to tell you I love you." "I love you too, Dad," she replied, confusion in her voice. After that, I powered off my phone. I couldn't face Jennifer's calls or texts, not now, maybe never. I barely slept that night. I kept seeing those messages, picturing them together. By dawn, I had made my decision. I wasn't going back. A man can only endure so much betrayal before something fundamental within him breaks. I would start over somewhere new, somewhere she wouldn't find me. I vanished, and in that moment, I never planned to return. A new life, a new self. By morning, I had a plan. I needed a new identity. Not legally, but practically. Somewhere Jennifer wouldn't think to look. I drove back to Chicago, parked in a downtown public garage, and walked to my bank. I withdrew another $5,000 from our joint account and completely closed my personal account, transferring the funds to a new account at a different bank. Then I went to our safety deposit box and retrieved my passport, birth certificate, and the gold coins my father had left me. "Going somewhere special, Mr. Harris?" the bank manager asked with a smile. "Just getting my affairs in order," I replied, forcing a strained smile in return. Next, I visited my attorney, Arthur Simmons, a man I had trusted for decades. "Warren, you look terrible," Arthur said as I entered his office. "What's happened?" "Jennifer's having an affair," I stated dispassionately. "I'm leaving." Arthur's face paled. "I'm sorry, did you tell her?" "No," I said firmly. "And I'm not going to. I need your help, Arthur. Complete discretion." I explained my plan to disappear for a while. Arthur listened without judgment, then nodded solemnly. "I'll handle things here," Arthur promised. "But, Warren, your daughter—" "I'll contact Emma when I'm settled," I assured him. "She doesn't need to be dragged into this mess." "And Jennifer?" Arthur asked cautiously. "Don't tell her anything," I replied. "If she wants a divorce, let her file the papers. I'll sign whatever's needed." I left Arthur with my power of attorney and instructions for managing my assets. He agreed to forward any important mail to a P.O. box I opened later that day. I checked into another hotel under an assumed name and purchased a prepaid burner phone. I called Emma one more time. "Dad, Mom is worried sick," Emma said immediately. "What's going on?" "I know about Richard," I said softly. Silence hung between us for several seconds. "You know," Emma finally whispered. "How long have you known?" "Just found out yesterday," I replied. "You knew?" "About a month," Emma confessed, her voice trembling. "I saw them together at a restaurant. Mom said it was just a friendship, but I'm not stupid." "I need time," I explained. "I'll call when I can." "Are you okay?" Emma asked, alarm in her voice. "No," I answered honestly. "But I will be." Hanging up, I sat on the edge of the hotel bed and felt something I hadn't expected. Relief. The decision was made. No more pretense, no more trying to salvage what was irrevocably broken. The next morning, I boarded a Greyhound bus heading west. As the Chicago skyline dissolved into the distance, I didn't look back. 29 years of memories were left behind as I moved forward toward whatever awaited me next. 3 days and 4 bus transfers later, I arrived in Portland, Oregon. I had chosen it at random, a place Jennifer and I had never visited, with a climate opposite to Chicago's. The persistent drizzle suited my mood as I checked into a modest extended stay hotel for 2 weeks. For those 2 weeks, I barely left the room, only venturing out for necessities. I grew a beard, something Jennifer had always disliked. I bought clothes from thrift stores, flannel shirts and work boots that my financial advisor self would never have worn. I became someone else. New ground and unexpected friends. When I finally emerged from my cocoon of grief, I began to explore the city. One rainy afternoon, I wandered into the Portland Japanese garden. The lush greenery and tranquil paths soothed something sharp and unhealed within me. "First time here?" an elderly gentleman asked, noting my gaze at a Japanese maple. "First time anywhere in a long time," I answered honestly. The man introduced himself as Harold Thornton. He and his wife Eleanor owned an expansive estate outside the city and were looking for a gardener. "Do you know anything about plants?" Harold asked. "Only that they don't lie or betray," I replied with more bitterness than I intended. Harold chuckled. "Fair enough. Ever worked with your hands?" "Not professionally," I admitted. "Professional experience is overrated," Harold said. "I need someone who appreciates beauty and isn't afraid of hard work. A cottage on our property comes with the job." "I'm not a charity case," I said firmly. "Good, because I'm not offering charity," Harold countered. "I'm offering honest pay for honest labor. Think about it." He handed me a business card with an address and phone number, then continued his stroll through the garden. That same night, I called the number. A week later, I moved into the gardener's cottage on the Thornton estate, a stone structure with weathered wooden beams and windows that faced east to catch the morning sun. My financial acumen meant nothing here, but as I learned to prune roses and nurture seedlings, I found a different kind of satisfaction, immediate, tangible results from my efforts. No clients, no deadlines, no betrayals, just soil, growth, and weather. For the first time in months, I slept without dreams. Unexpected tidings. 6 months slipped by, moving with the rhythm of the changing seasons. Summer yielded to autumn, painting the Thornton estate in fiery reds and golds. I learned the language of plants, which thrived in shadow, which demanded constant attention, which were hardy enough to survive neglect. Sometimes I saw parallels with human relationships, which I tried not to dwell on. Harold and Eleanor became unexpected friends. They respected my privacy, but occasionally invited me to dinners where conversation flowed easily about everything but my past. They never pried, and I appreciated that more than they knew. One crisp October morning, I drove into town for supplies. The local post office had become part of my routine. Arthur forwarded anything important to my P.O. box. Usually it was just financial statements or brief updates on my former life. But that day, nestled among the usual mail, a thick, cream-colored envelope awaited. My name was scrawled in Jennifer's unmistakable hand, no return address. I stared at it so long the postal clerk asked if everything was all right. "Fine," I mumbled, stuffing the envelope into my jacket pocket without opening it. I ran my errands mechanically, the envelope burning against my chest like a hot coal. Back at the cottage, I laid it on the kitchen table and went to work in the garden, aggressively pruning the roses as if I could prune my thoughts just as easily. By sunset, I was exhausted but calm. I showered, prepared a simple dinner, and poured a glass of whiskey. Only then did I open the envelope. Inside was a 10-page letter, all in Jennifer's handwriting. The first line stopped me dead. "I found you, Warren." After months of searching, she'd hired a private investigator who tracked me through my new bank account. Jennifer detailed her shock at my disappearance, her confusion when Arthur refused to divulge my whereabouts, and her eventual realization that I must have discovered her affair with Richard. "What you don't know," she wrote, "is that it ended months ago. It was never anything real, just a pathetic attempt to feel something again." I took a long gulp of whiskey, my hand steady despite the turmoil within. She wrote about how Emma had finally told her everything, how her daughter hadn't spoken to her for weeks afterward, how her friends had gradually stopped inviting her places, how the large house felt like a mausoleum of her former life. The last paragraph hit hardest. I don't expect forgiveness, Warren. I don't even expect a reply. But I need to see you one last time, to say goodbye properly, to tell you this face to face. I will be at the Riverside Hotel in Portland next Tuesday, room 412. If you don't come, I will understand, and you will never hear from me again. I folded the letter neatly and returned it to the envelope. Then I walked outside and stood under the stars, breathing deeply of the cool night air. She had found me. After all these months of silence and rebuilding, Jennifer had tracked me down. The question wasn't whether I would go. The question was, what kind of man would I be when I faced her? The encounter. I didn't tell Harold and Eleanor about Jennifer's letter, but Eleanor, with her uncanny perceptiveness, sensed something had shifted. The hydrangeas looked neglected, she commented casually as we walked through the garden. And so do you. Just distracted, I admitted. Distraction is the mind's way of processing what the heart isn't ready to face, Eleanor said. When I didn't respond, she added, whatever it is, Warren, remember that strength isn't about never falling. It's about how you get back up. I nodded my gratitude, unable to form words around the lump in my throat. The weekend passed in a whirlwind of garden work and internal debate. By Tuesday morning, I had made my decision. I told Harold I needed the day off for personal business. Take all the time you need, Harold said, squeezing my shoulder firmly. The garden will wait. I drove into downtown Portland with the windows down, letting the crisp autumn air clear my head. The Riverside Hotel was a modern glass building overlooking the Willamette River. I parked in a public garage and sat in my car for nearly 20 minutes, steeling myself. At precisely noon, I knocked on room 412. The door opened immediately. Jennifer stood there, not as I remembered her. Thinner, with streaks of gray in hair she used to color. Her eyes widened at the sight of my beard and weathered appearance. Warren, she whispered, stepping back to let me in. The room was a standard hotel setup. A large bed, a desk, 2 armchairs by the window. Her suitcase stood neatly in a corner, her familiar perfume faintly in the air. You look, Jennifer began. Different, I finished for her. So do you. An awkward silence filled the space between us. Thank you for coming, she finally said, gesturing to the armchairs. I wasn't sure you would. I sat back straight, hands on my knees. Your letter didn't leave me much choice. I'm sorry, Jennifer said quickly. Not just for finding you, for everything. Why did you look for me? I asked, cutting to the chase. We both know our marriage was over the moment I saw those messages. Because you vanished without a word. Jennifer's voice cracked slightly. Because after 29 years I deserved at least a goodbye. And I deserve fidelity, I countered, my voice surprisingly calm. We don't always get what we deserve. She winced as if I had struck her. You're right. I just needed to explain. You explain in your letter, I interrupted. Richard was a distraction. You were bored, lonely. I wasn't around enough. I've heard it all before, Jennifer, just not about us. Tears welled in her eyes. Is that what you think, that I'm making excuses? Aren't you? I asked. No, she said firmly. I take responsibility. What I did was unforgivable. I destroyed something precious because I was weak and selfish. Her raw honesty caught me off guard. This wasn't the conversation I had rehearsed in my head. I'm not here for an apology, I said, watching Jennifer closely. I'm here because running away didn't solve anything. We need clarity. Jennifer nodded, visibly collecting herself. Emma refuses to talk to me, she said softly. She said she'll never forgive me for driving you away. I'll talk to her, I replied. She shouldn't blame you for my choices. That's noble of you, Jennifer said, surprise in her voice. It's not nobility, I corrected her. It's truth. You made your choices, I made mine. A heavy silence settled between us. 29 years of shared history reduced to awkward pauses and careful words. "Are you happy here?" Jennifer finally asked. "Working as a gardener?" The question could have sounded condescending from anyone else, but there was genuine curiosity in her tone. "Yes," I answered honestly. "There's something profoundly genuine about watching things grow through your efforts. No office politics, no client demands, just soil, plants, and weather." "And the Thorntons?" she asked. "Arthur mentioned them when my detective finally got him to talk." "Good people," I said simply. "They gave me space when I needed it most." Jennifer nodded, then reached for her purse and pulled out a large envelope. "I've drawn up the divorce papers," she said, placing them on the coffee table between us. "Everything is split equally. The house is already listed for sale." I stared at the envelope, emotions churning beneath my calm exterior. The official end of nearly 3 decades of shared life, reduced to legal documents and signatures. "You're not contesting anything?" I asked. "Why would I?" Jennifer countered. "I'm the one who broke our vows, Warren. I won't compound that by fighting over assets." Her accountability again surprised me. This wasn't the defensive reaction I'd expected. "There's one more thing," Jennifer said, pulling out a smaller envelope. "Emma is getting married in June. Despite everything, she wants you to walk her down the aisle." My throat tightened. "She's engaged." "To whom?" "Christopher Matthews. They've been dating for about a year. You'll like him. He's an architect, steady, treats her well." The realization that I had missed my daughter's relationship hit me hard. Life had gone on without me. "You should be there too," I said after a pause. "Whatever happened between us, she needs her mother." Jennifer's eyes filled with tears. "I've tried telling her that. Maybe she'll listen to you." I nodded, making a mental note to call her as soon as I could. Some bridges couldn't be burned, no matter how painful the crossing. As our conversation wound down, I found myself studying Jennifer's face, the familiar crinkles around her eyes, the way she tucked her hair behind her ear when she was uncertain. I had once loved those details. Now they belonged to a chapter of my life that was closing. "I should go," I said, standing and picking up the envelope of divorce papers. Jennifer rose too, maintaining a careful distance. "I'm truly sorry, Warren. Not just for the affair, but for taking so long to become the person who could admit it was entirely my fault." I nodded once, acknowledging her words but offering no forgiveness. It wasn't my right to give it yet. As I turned to leave, I paused at the door. "Be well, Jennifer," I said softly. The most honest sentiment I could offer. A new beginning spring arrived at the Thornton estate in a riot of color. The tulips and daffodils I had planted the previous autumn pushed through the soil toward the sunlight. I found a metaphor in their resilience. True to my word, I called Emma the day after meeting with Jennifer. We talked for nearly 2 hours about her engagement, her work at an environmental law firm, and finally about her mother. "She ruined everything," Emma said, anger in her voice. "No," I gently corrected. "She damaged our marriage. But you're not collateral damage, Emma. Don't sacrifice your relationship with your mother because of what happened between us." "How can you be so calm?" Emma demanded. "Because holding on to resentment was destroying me," I confessed. "I left to find peace, not to punish her." After some persuasion, Emma agreed to call her mother. It wasn't forgiveness yet, but it was a start. 2 weeks later, Harold found me pruning the rose garden. "It's Eleanor's birthday dinner tonight," he reminded me. "We're expecting you at 7, and we'll have another guest I'd like you to meet." I had almost forgotten. "I'll be there," I promised. That evening, I showered and changed into the only decent outfit I owned, khakis and a blue button-down shirt Jennifer had bought me years ago. The irony wasn't lost as I walked toward the main house carrying a bottle of Eleanor's favorite wine. The Thornton home was a graceful Victorian with wraparound porches and large windows, warmly lit against the deepening twilight. Eleanor greeted me with her usual warmth. "Warren, you look well," she said with a smile. "Come, meet our guest." In the living room stood a woman perusing the bookshelves. Tall, with dark hair threaded with silver, twisted into a simple knot, she turned as we entered, revealing intelligent eyes and a gentle smile. She wore a simple black dress that spoke of elegance rather than ostentation. "Warren, this is Grace Winters," Eleanor said. "My niece from Seattle." "Grace, this is Warren Harris, the miracle worker who saved my gardens." "It's a pleasure to meet you," Grace said, extending her hand. Her handshake was firm, her gaze direct. "The pleasure is mine," I replied, feeling unexpectedly flustered. Over dinner, I learned that Grace was a retired judge, now teaching law at the University of Washington. She had never married, choosing a career over family, a decision she spoke of without apology or regret. Her dry humor and directness appealed to me despite my reservations. After dessert, Harold suggested we have brandy on the porch. Eleanor declined, citing fatigue, and Harold mysteriously remembered a phone call he needed to make, leaving Grace and me alone with our snifters. "They're not very subtle," Grace observed with amusement. "No," I agreed. "Eleanor's been hinting for months that I need more company than plants." "And do you?" Grace asked directly. I considered the question honestly. "I'm not sure. My divorce isn't even finalized yet." "I'm not proposing marriage, Warren," Grace said, a smile reaching her eyes. "Just a conversation under the stars. We can start there." Her straightforwardness made me laugh, the first genuine, sustained laugh I'd had in longer than I could remember. Over the next few months, Grace and I cultivated a friendship that blossomed with deliberate slowness. We met for coffee, then dinner, then long walks through the gardens I tended. She never pushed for more than I was ready to give, and I cherished her patience. Farewell. Past, hello future. The divorce was finally finalized in April. Jennifer and I signed the last papers at Arthur's office. The proceedings were amicable and understated. As we left, she touched my arm briefly. "I saw Emma last week," Jennifer said. "She's giving me another chance." "I'm glad," I replied sincerely. "She needs her mother." "She needs you too," Jennifer countered. "We all did. I just realized it too late." I nodded, acknowledging her words without opening old wounds. "Be well, Jennifer." "You too, Warren," she said softly before walking away to her waiting car. I stood on the sidewalk, watching her drive away, feeling a strange lightness. The anger that had once consumed me had faded into something softer. Not forgiveness, but acceptance. We had both made choices that led us here, and now we could move forward separately. That evening, I invited Grace to dinner at the cottage. It was the first time I had invited her into my private space, and the significance wasn't lost on either of us. "You look different tonight," Grace observed as we sat on the porch after dinner, watching the sunset paint the gardens gold. "The divorce is final," I told her. "That chapter is officially closed." Grace nodded thoughtfully. "How does it feel?" "Like I've shed a heavy burden I've been carrying," I admitted. "Not entirely comfortable yet, my muscles are still strained from the effort, but it's lighter." "Poetic for a gardener," Grace said with a slight smile. "Plants teach you about cycles," I replied. "Endings and beginnings. Death and rebirth." Grace's hand found mine in the deepening twilight. Her palm was warm and slightly calloused, the hand of someone who did real work, despite her professional past. "I'm not trying to replace what you lost," she said directly. "That wouldn't be fair to either of us." "I know," I replied. "That's why I respect you. You're not trying to fill someone else's space. You're creating your own." The kiss that followed was gentle, questioning, undemanding. When we drew apart, Grace's eyes were fixed on mine with her characteristic directness. "I don't need promises," she said. "Only honesty. Whatever happens between us, can you offer that?" "Yes," I answered without hesitation. "That I can promise." Later that night, walking her back to her car, Grace turned to survey the cottage and the gardens silvered by moonlight. "You've built something beautiful here, Warren." Looking at the transformation around me, the ordered beds, the thriving plants, the peaceful cottage, I realized she was right. From the ashes of my old life, I had indeed created something worth protecting. "Thank you," I said, meaning it on many levels, "for seeing it." As her taillights disappeared down the driveway, I stood in the quiet garden, listening to the sounds of the night and feeling, for the first time in a long time, genuine hope for tomorrow. June arrived with perfect weather for Emma's wedding. I stood in the church antechamber, adjusting my tie, emotions swirling beneath my calm exterior. In a moment, I would walk my daughter down the aisle, a role I once feared I would never fulfill. The door opened and Emma entered in her wedding gown, radiant and composed. She paused. "Dad," she said softly, "you look so handsome." "And you are beautiful," I replied, my voice thick with emotion. "Your mother will be proud." Emma's smile faltered slightly. "It's strange, having you both here after everything." "No," I assured her. "Today isn't about us, it's about you and Christopher and your future." I offered her my arm and she took it, squeezing gratefully. "I'm so glad you're back," she whispered. "When you vanished after Mom's affair, I was scared we'd lost you forever." "Never," I promised. "I needed time, but you are my daughter. Nothing changes that." The ceremony passed in a blur of music, vows, and flowers. Jennifer sat in the front row, her eyes glistening with tears. We exchanged polite nods but maintained a respectful distance. The weight of our history remained, but it no longer threatened to overshadow the present. At the reception, I danced with Emma, cherishing the moment. When the song ended, she kissed my cheek and whispered, "I invited Grace. Hope that's okay." Before I could answer, Emma was swept away by her new husband. Turning, I saw Grace at the edge of the dance floor in a simple blue dress, looking slightly uncertain, a rare expression for her. "You came," I said, walking toward her. "Your daughter called me personally," Grace replied with a slight smile, quite persuasive. "Just like her father," I quipped, offering her my hand. "Will you dance with me?" As we moved across the dance floor, I noticed Jennifer watching us. She raised her champagne glass in a small salute, and after a moment's hesitation, I nodded in return. Some wounds would never fully heal, but they no longer had to define us. After the reception, Grace and I strolled through the hotel gardens, my hand resting comfortably in hers. "Emma invited me for Thanksgiving," Grace mentioned casually. "Too soon?" "No," I replied, considering it honestly. "It feels right." Grace stopped, turning to face me. "Warren, I need to ask you something. Are you still running from your past, or are you ready to build a future?" The directness of her question, so characteristic of Grace, demanded equal honesty. "When I vanished upon discovering the affair, I never planned to return to my old life," I said slowly. "Even when Jennifer found me, I resisted re-engaging with that past. But I see it differently now. I'm not running anymore. I'm choosing to move forward every day." Grace's smile was worth every difficult step of the journey. "That's all I needed to hear," she said. Later that night, watching Emma and Christopher drive away in a shower of rice and well-wishes, I felt a profound sense of completion. The man who had fled Chicago in pain and betrayal was not the same man standing here now. I had lost much, but I had gained something, perhaps more valuable. The knowledge that broken things, whether gardens or hearts, could be restored with patience, care, and the courage to begin anew. Ladies and gentlemen, since you've listened to the end of this story, please subscribe to the channel and write in the comments which state you're watching from. Let's see what percentage of elite viewers make it to the end. And please kindly turn your attention to the screen after this message. There you'll find a full playlist of thrilling stories, a subscribe button for the channel, and our most captivating story. Click, enjoy, and thank you.